Thank you everyone for the opportunity to share a little bit with you today. It was an interesting way it came about. I've had the opportunity to work with Juliana from Tawong Shire over a number of years ago, and we literally crossed paths in the city a few months back, and I was sharing a little bit about the work we're doing and thought it would be a really interesting crossover to be able to come and share with you all today some of the work, because I think off the back of what Jal has been speaking about, some of the challenges that are facing rural communities, but also some of the opportunities that we see we can help create more vibrant communities, is exactly what we are all about. Now, hopefully I'll get this device to work. Where am I pointing that? There we go. So basically, this simple question of how can we create more vibrant communities is a statement, I guess, that's driven my career over the last many years, the last number of years specifically. And it's led me on a journey towards what I'm going to explain a little bit more about today, which is Tribus, which is basically a digital platform to help empower people to create more vibrant communities. So in that light, I guess this question of how can we create more vibrant communities is something that can, I guess, play out in many different ways. We heard a lot then just about the political front and the actions that can be taken to improve and build upon vibrant communities, but I know that it essentially comes down to the people in communities and how we can actually try and work with people to be able to create the places that they all want to live, work, learn, play, and really be part of and engage in that community. So the context I see that we have, and this is something that I'm always wrestling with, and some of the juxtapositions I see, I guess, as we develop a digital platform, is these challenges that we have ahead of us. And challenges that, like I said before, I see really as opportunities that we can start to build upon, and especially in the rural communities where we can start to unpack these questions of, yes, on one hand we have growing populations, but we also have to balance this idea of livability. Now, there's a lot of discussion, of course, that Melbourne is the world's most livable city, but I always question how far out does that livability roll, especially into suburbs and out into regional areas. So I think the real challenge there is to how we can leverage potential population growth, but really be focused on the quality of life and the quality of livability for people in these communities that we're working. I guess also this idea of people getting more engaged, expecting more, having a bigger requirement specifically of councils, and we're well aware that councils can't do everything, and especially in the environment of rates capping as well, that how can we start to find another way? How can we be more entrepreneurial? How can we challenge the way that we can meet some of the community demands with the challenges that you're facing as councils? Throw in the mix of the shifting demographics, baby boomers, that knowledge, that integration into strong communities are juxtaposed against millennials and the shifting needs and desires of millennials, that they're wanting to be engaged in something that's more, has greater meaning. If you're employing millennials, you probably know there's always a lot more questions around what impact do you have in community, where's the value, and how can they make an impact in general. So I think there's a real opportunity there. Also this idea that in an environment where we're using social media, huge opportunity, but how many know that you can have hundreds of friends on Facebook or Instagram, but it doesn't necessarily translate to more connected people, more relationships, and it actually can lead to greater social exclusion. So that opportunity there is to how can we start to address the challenges of social isolation, especially once again in rural communities. So to put it in context for a second, just a little snapshot of my journey and why I've been identifying these sorts of opportunities and challenges, and where I think hopefully can add some value to all the work you're doing here today. Some in the room may already know me as an urban designer and architect. I have been working in the industry for 20 years. I've been a partner of Melbourne-based practice Clark Hopkins Clark for the last 12 years, and our practice has been going over 60 years. So we've worked extensively through Victoria, a lot of work in rural communities, community infrastructure, and I'm actively involved now in the design of new cities across Australia as well as in new master plan communities. So I have a real understanding of what it is to get involved in community engagement, finger on the pulse, and and understand the challenges that are facing not just councils, but people in communities as well. Through that process or that role, so I'm the CEO of Tribus, but Ed, standing over here, is our product manager who runs the platform and continuing to develop it. But that came off the back of 2 years of research I did when I started to unpack this question of how can we create more vibrant communities. It led to 2 years of research of how we can actually create more livable, sustainable, vibrant, healthy places for people to live. There is a copy of the book here. If anyone would like to find out more about that later, come and see me. That really is trying to unpack quite a logical well considered a way to create more vibrant communities. I go to a lot of conferences and urban design conferences and so on. There's a lot of catchphrases that get thrown around, but I always want to drill down to how we can actually do this. As a business, if you haven't heard of B Corporation, we're a certified B Corp, which basically is a certification process to say we put people and environment ahead of profit and look to structure our business with a real shared value approach. So it's through this level of thinking that we've set up our own innovation type element within our business that Tribus is an offshoot of. It's a separate business that we're now growing and running. Just personally, I guess as a side note, I think understanding rural communities is very important to me. I've also founded a foundation called One Heart. We're working in Africa where the legal guardians of 75 orphaned and abandoned children, developing sustainable eco-villages where we create and run children's homes for orphan and abandoned kids, schools, training centres. We're developing, we have dairy farms, poultry farms, bakeries and so on to help create a sustainable financial model. So that is in the light, I guess, of what's in the back of my mind, I guess, in creating Tribus and how I think this can really relate to some of the challenges that you face. Now, a quick snapshot again before I explain what the platform is. A little bit more detail is what the 4 key things I found out of a couple of years of research and many more years of experience in the field is that the world is changing. People are wanting to get more engaged and have a bigger say in what happens in their communities and the places around them. But I've found through all my work there's a real disconnect and they can often feel quite unempowered or don't know quite how to bridge that gap to be able to have that influence beyond, I guess, approaching councils. Also that we're working in an environment now where people are returning or craving more for that sense of community. And this is what I love about rural communities. There is a much stronger sense of community and connection to people than what I see in a city, I guess. So people are wanting to engage and connect in a new way and revert back to a stronger sense of community. I also saw that businesses really do want to engage. There are some really purpose-driven businesses at a local level, at a national level, that want to engage with communities to be able to make an impact and have a lasting legacy as well. So how do we create the environment and the forum for all these elements to be addressed? And of course, councils have the ongoing problem of having to do more with less. So some of the benchmarking we've been doing internationally is starting to figure out a way that we can address and help councils do more, but not all be relying on your own funding. How can we start to really encourage a lot more community-led initiatives and different funding mechanisms in that? So through all these challenges, as I started to say before, have worked a lot in rural communities, and I thought, how do we take these challenges, couple that with some of the things I love about rural communities as well, and bring those benefits to the front to be able to engage in some of the work we're doing in more inner city and suburban contexts through the creation of this digital platform. And a quick snapshot, I guess, is it's this idea of you have a really strong sense of community where you can live, work, learn, play, and it's all local. We talk about it in inner city design around this 20-minute neighbourhood. Well, most rural communities just have that by nature of population size. Locals, good or bad, depending on what side you are in council, locals are a lot more engaged, good, but as in there can be obviously a lot more vocal community members, but they're really wanting to get engaged in local matters. People are a lot more willing to help, I've found in our work in rural communities, a lot more involvement in volunteering, which we know from a health perspective is really a major benefit to mental health and wellbeing as well. And of course, one of the key things is that that rural spirit is a lot more resilient and innovative that we really want to be able to tap into. So they are a really quick snapshot of all the challenges that we'd seen through our research, where I realised we need to do something to be able to help improve the livability and vibrancy of communities, whether it be rural or in a city around Australia. So then you ask the question, how can we use a digital tool to bring people together? Well aware that can seem like an oxymoron given the context I just said that digital tools can make greater social isolation, but digital tools that can actually bring people together face to face is exactly what Tribus is all about. So I'll just run through this in a little bit more context, as now all of that background information you'll start to see pulled together in what Tribus is and what its aspirations are and what we've been building over the last couple of years. And I should just point out as well that this, if you start to Google this, it is built, but we haven't gone live on the platform yet. We're about to launch into pilot programs with a number of councils. But Tribus as a platform is essentially the first tool, digital tool in Australia that will bring together councils and businesses and communities in a new way. It basically becomes an environment which is a neutral field, playing field for communities to be able to contribute, have a say in their community. Businesses are launching ideas and initiatives, councils are throwing ideas and initiatives in there, and it's coming up on people's social feeds, on their computers, laptops, mobile devices, everything that is local and relevant to them. From the community perspective, it's basically an ideas incubator. So someone in the community has a great idea, they don't know where to go, where to start putting this out there. They can launch it, they have to build enough supporters to validate it to go into a project phase, and then Tribus as a tool helps bring those great ideas to life where they are good ideas. It also becomes a community marketplace. Now what I mean by that is when you see those three prongs that make community, council and businesses, we start to put all the tools in place that we can help bring good ideas to life. Not just community-led initiatives, but your own projects and initiatives that you're wanting to engage and relate to the people that you represent. So it's this marketplace and it's hyper-local. So you don't have to worry about what's happening in Queensland or anything on the other side of the world. Anyone that pulls this up in their own digital tool are seeing everything that's relevant to them. Every project profile from a small community group to council's feedback and consultation on a community hub, local business launching a grant. It's all there, it's all in their hand, and it's all connecting everything together. And I guess essentially it's giving councils this real heartbeat, understanding of what's happening in your community, who's active, what are the topics, what projects are relevant, what funding's flowing in from other sources, and you get the full back-end insight into that. So we've really built it in mind, with councils in mind, how we can really build upon your understanding of what's happening in the community. So the way it works, we've put them as cogs because we need these three moving parts. The community members, the platform is designed as a community-facing platform. So that means it's very clean, very simple, very basic in its first introduction to it, so that it's not off-putting to community members, but individuals launch a profile, then they can start to post their own ideas, and I'll show you some images in a minute. But more importantly, what I found through all our research is it's the arts groups, the sports groups, the education sector, it's all these different groups where people already come together that need a face, need a presence to be able to have the forum, to be out there and communicating a local directory of active organisations in a community where people can tap into, become part of or contribute to. Councils sit in the back end in one way of looking at it, but your profile is in the mix where people can approach, see everything about your local council, where anything that needs a public-facing element to community is put through the Tribus platform, and then councils are getting all of that direct insight. And of course, local businesses have that same input, where there's no advertising, there's nothing like that on the platform, but if, say, a supermarket is providing grants to promote healthier eating in schools, then their logo will pop up on their project tile, and you start to get businesses engaged. It might be a local real estate agent putting some funding out there for upgrades to sport facilities or something like that. It's really trying to tap into a much more entrepreneurial approach to community development and empowerment. So essentially anything that will improve your local community can be posted in Tribus. So it's all about improving your community and putting it out there on this neutral playing field where people can engage, connect, get involved, have a say with what's happening on your projects. But more importantly, for councils especially, as a project starts to evolve, it will capture the whole chronological discussion of any, whatever it might be. It might be a budget presentation, it might be a community hub, it might be some new tree planting, anything, it will track the whole discussion. So the question then becomes, how do we use a digital tool to make cool stuff happen in local communities? So what we've done is basically set up a whole series of tools. Now remember, Tribus helps take ideas from ideas into reality, whether it be a council project or a group of young teenagers wanting this idea to do a new skate park or something like that. People are given a voice. Doesn't mean everything is going to go ahead. Council is made alert of any projects that will potentially involve them, but it gives them the tools to start this platform where community members, free to participate, can pitch an idea. It's basically an ideas pitch fest. See what is relevant to the different social groups, community groups and so on. They have to build support for their idea. The ones that don't get any support because they're not active, getting out and engaging with people, drop off after a number of days on the platform. With 20 supports, you unlock project tools. You can start to promote it through your social media. Local directory, you can probably decommission your own directory if you have one as a council, always trying to maintain them. When community groups can start to maintain and manage their own public profile, then it becomes a lot more relevant and engaging. But as people unlock their project idea into an actual project phase, they can then tap into all our tools. This is the marketplace. So what do you need for your community idea? You might need some apply for a grant, you might need to call for volunteers, you might need to crowdfund, you might just want to do some research of some other projects in councils and municipalities around Australia. You might want to run a petition, you want to stop, the community wants to stop plastic bags at their local supermarket. Well, this becomes that platform where everything that's relevant to your community is there, and of course events that can spit out of some of these projects as well. But the real back end part is for councils, and this is where there's a real powerful tool where we want to engage with everyone in this room here to say this is real-time, finger-on-the-pulse information that we can tailor to any council. We're using it as a tool, and I know there's some tools out there already that do engagement, but that's very singular use, whereas we can tie this into the life of the whole project. Engagement and consultation, collection of data, track the project history for its entirety, promote your own grants and volunteering, promote anything that you're doing where you can engage with that community, but also see everything else that is happening as well. So it's a real insight into what's actively happening. Now, a quick snapshot of the way it looks. Again, I've mentioned it's simple, clean, approachable, because this isn't something that's embedded into your website. I'm not sure if you're aware of this, but most community members find council's own websites a little bit daunting because there's just that much going on there. They don't know where to start. So this is actually a very simple, clean platform that sits external to your internal website, but you have full back access into it. So community members might start with just launching a little idea. It might be a whole group, it might be an individual, it might be some kids in a school, it might be a class, it could be anything. They have to then, or you might be going onto the platform to find ideas. If you just engage and you see it pop up on your Facebook feed and you think, what's this about? You might want to look for some certain ideas, and you can filter that down to council-led ideas, community-led ideas, businesses, or something around art, sports, recreation, whatever it is that's relevant to people. And remember, this is hyper-local, so once you've logged in once, it knows your postcode, it knows where you are with your phone, it can just feed you information that's relevant to you. But as it goes along, those projects then come up. These are what I'm referring to as project tiles. So every one of these you can click on, it drills into, and these are different individuals in the community that have launched a great idea. Remembering, this is giving communities empowerment to be able to launch ideas that may or may not have to involve council. You guys don't have to do everything. And where it does require council's involvement, you get an alert if it was to say, we want to do a street festival or something like that. Councils are fully kept in the loop. But it gives people the idea to then build support for their idea. Once it gets enough community support, they can start to unlock tools to whatever it is they need, crowdfund, grants, volunteers, petition or something. You drill into any of these and it gives you a full insight into the project, what phase they're up to. And remember, this tracks the entire life of the project. So not just from the idea, but through to the different round they might go through funding or just keeping the community updated. And then councils themselves will have their own profile page, just a simple, clean interface so the community can see what council's involved in this particular region if they're not even aware of the LGA they're within. That's important because councils then still have a presence where you can show what projects you've actively got out there. Some might want some feedback, some might be offering grants, some might be calling for ideas of how people can get engaged. But again, you get all this background insight into all of this. And you can also look what other councils are doing as well to start to share data and experiences. So it's really important to build that up. The back end, this is the really simple snapshot of it, is this dashboard that you would have access to, and we can tailor this as needed. Who's active? Who are the community champions? What are the hot topics? What funds are getting generated outside of council's own grant mechanism? On a map even, where are these projects getting generated? You can start to trend and get some real-time data of who, what, and what topics are relevant, which we think is a really exciting insight. And like I said, we can just continue to add metrics to whatever it is that you guys would need. And it becomes a platform for you to manage your own grants. You can probably strip away a lot of the different platforms and tools that you have and basically get this one-stop shop to be able to have a real community marketplace. Global trends. I often get asked then, is there a real need for this? Is this really just another thing we need to do? Well, essentially, I can assure you there is some real global trends happening in this space, and we can really streamline some of the work that you guys are having to do with different tools and platforms. But it's a real quick snapshot of what we see happening internationally in the UK. This is simply a crowdfunding tool. But some of the projects that are coming out of it, from helping address homelessness to healthier eating to schools initiatives, even the Lord Mayor of London is now using it to use for crowdfunding for council projects because it's taken off so well. On a local level, Leader newspaper even do these small $1,000 grants, and I noticed even in your own material here that you've got some of these projects where you're offering competitions for $1,000 for different types of projects. That's the sort of thing you could put through Tribus, and it goes into the mix and comes right up in people's faces so they're aware of it, so you don't get undersubscribed grants. The benefits, just quickly I guess to highlight, is for community members, because you could say, is this a service for you? Well, it's both. It'll streamline council services, but there's a real value add for you to use this for your communities, because it's free for them to join, it's free for them to crowdfund. Not many platforms are doing that. They can see what's happening in and around them with their councils and local businesses, but it provides them this end-to-end. We're there to be able to help bring good projects to life. And of course, free access, as I mentioned, to be able to get crowdfunding and get grants and allocations for funding out there, where they can use your grant funding to seed it to be able to go on and do more. And what's interesting, I guess, as a platform, because we're really passionate about improving the quality of life in communities, is 20% goes back to community grants, Tribus grants, that we can help grassroots organisations get up. So if I was to put this in context, how would it be used for a community, say? They can do some research, just say they're going to do a community garden. How do they go about it now compared to this? So they do some research of others that have done it. They put their idea out there, get some feelers, get some comments, get some feedback through their Facebook, which feeds back into their project profile. They can discuss it and validate it. They get 20 votes, they can unlock the project tools. So once they've got the project tools, they might have to access some grants that council are putting up there, and you can manage all of that. You can see all the people that are applying. Then they may take that grant, they may leverage it with some crowdfunding to scale up the money that they have. They might use our crowdsourcing. Over time, we'll develop, you might get some Bunnings, we'll donate some dirt or something like that, and Bunnings are getting some cross-promotion. Then they might need to call for volunteers. So we'll coordinate all the volunteers through the platform. Then they need to go out for the working bee day. So we've got the event management tool to be able to help make that happen. Council are seeing all these things happening in the background. And of course, it tracks the life of the project. So there's some photo updates, keep people in the loop, and that can go on for years. It might pop up again in another year on people's feed because they're doing some more funding. How's it relevant to council in the last few minutes here? Council, again, may have some ideas where you want to use the tool to research once we build enough data in there. Then you launch a project. It might be, say, a community hub. You launch it, you get some community feedback, promote the idea, get it out there. And we're doing this with Hepburnshire at the moment, where we built whole websites before we developed this. It's a waste of funding. So you consult with the locals, you track all of that discussion and engagement. It's all there. You can put the PDFs and so on as each step of the project. Then you might put it out there for some feedback on the budget. Then we build and deliver the thing, and you're keeping the feed in people's social media with project status updates. Then you might use that as a platform to promote the event, and people can RSVP to go to the opening, and then it's there for the life of the project. We're doing this with Hobson's Bay with their tech startup hub, that they can then put grants through the hub, pitchfest ideas of how to improve their community. So for councils, it's a powerful way to connect all of these different groups and really empower your residents without you having to do everything. Streamline everything you may be doing in different pieces of grants, or you might do some engagement platforms. We can streamline all of that and just give you one much more valuable platform. And then, of course, it's that back end that we can continue to build out and develop. This is a startup we're continuing to build. And of course, it'll allow you to be able to tap into some of the other knowledge that we're exploring what's happening around the world. And it really is this one tool to engage with the entire community. So it's really valuable for councils because we can tailor this dashboard to what your needs and insights are. So just to summarise, I guess, we just really want to be able to help build this movement, sorry, the slides dropped off there, of how we can genuinely use our entrepreneurial background and knowledge to be able to help your communities and be able to help councils create more livable, vibrant, healthy, sustainable places. And we can tap into the knowledge of the people you have in your community to do that, to be more prosperous. It is essentially a lot more than an engagement tool, because often people say, oh, we already use this or that. Well, it's much more than that. It's end-to-end life of any project you can think of running through your council that needs to engage with your communities to allow you to understand the heartbeat of the people in your community, give you that insight as well. So my essential goal in doing this, I'd love to be able to work with councils to see you potentially shift from regulators, which community can sometimes see council as, to enablers of positive change. Really tease out and encourage this entrepreneurial approach in your communities. So we're about to launch pilot projects with Hobson's Bay, Hepburnshire, City of Casey and City of Greater Geelong to test it in different scenarios so we can put that data and feed it back in to continually improve the platform. So I'll leave you with that today, and what I will ask then, if anyone wants to find up any more information, just text that number. You're not signing up to anything, so don't worry. It's just an easier way to communicate this with you more instantly. So grab a photo of the screen, text us, and we'll start to bring you in the loop, because we're going to do about 6 to 8 weeks of piloting with the other councils before we want to get as many other councils ready to go public later in the year, and we'd love as many on board to be able to do that, because the more data you can put into it and share with your communities, the richer the experience will be for everyone involved.